The Galactic Hub Station hung in space like a giant wheel made of steel and glass. Ships from 100 different alien species came and went every day. Humans had been part of the hub for only 5 years, so many species still did not trust them. But humans did not care much what others thought. They came to trade, to learn, and to show that Earth was no longer alone in the galaxy. J1 was 8 years old. She had been born on Earth, but her father, Commander Park, worked at the hub as a human representative. This meant J1 got to see the galaxy. She got to walk the hallways where beings of all shapes and sizes moved past each other. Some had wings. Some had 6 legs. Some were made of something that looked like crystal. To J1, it was the most exciting place in the universe. Commander Park kept her close. He knew not all aliens liked humans. The Krell were the biggest reason for his worry. The Krell were the most powerful military force in the entire galaxy. They stood 7 feet tall and had blue-gray skin. They had 4 arms, and their weapons were the most advanced ever made. Every species in the galaxy listened to the Krell. Even the old species that had ruled for millions of years accepted Krell authority. But the Krell did not respect humans. To them, humans were new. Humans were weak. Humans had come from a world called Earth that was old and tired. The Krell believed that any species that needed water and food and sleep was not fit to stand among the great ones. They believed that Earth was not a true home world, just a prison that made humans soft. Commander Trosses was a Krell officer. He stood in the main passage of the hub, speaking with other Krell soldiers. Trosses had killed in wars across 3 star systems. He had defeated enemies 10 times stronger than a human. He had seen wonders and horrors that would break a human mind. To him, humans were insects. They were something to brush away and forget about. J1 did not know any of this. She was thinking about lunch. She had been walking with her father, holding his hand. They were moving through the station toward the human section where the food was familiar. Korean food. Rice and vegetables and soup. But J1 had gotten excited about a shop selling crystals from the Andromeda system. She pulled her hand free from her father's and ran toward the store. She did not see Commander Tross. She did not see his shadow falling across the U.S. white floor of the passage. She ran right into him. J1 bounced off the Krell officer's massive leg and fell backward. She landed hard on the ground and felt pain shoot through her left arm. She looked up, scared and surprised. For a moment, she did not understand what had happened. Then she realized she had run into someone. Her father had always told her to look where she was going. Commander Trosses looked down at this small human child, this tiny thing that had dared to bump into him. His first reaction was anger. His second was something worse than anger. It was the kind of cold rage that comes from being disrespected. Trosses raised his right arm. His hand was closed into a fist. Commander Park saw what was happening. He started to run toward his daughter, but he was too far away. There were too many beings between them. He called out his daughter's name. Trosses brought his fist down. He hit J1 across her small body. The force lifted her off the ground. She flew backwards several feet and crashed into the wall. The wind left her lungs in one painful gasp. She fell to the floor in a heap. Her nose was bleeding. One eye was beginning to swell. Everything in the passage stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. A Krell officer had struck a human child. This had never happened before. The Krell were strong, and everyone knew it. But they also followed the laws of the hub. There were rules about what you could do to children. There were rules about violence without cause. There were rules about respect between species. Trosses had broken all of them. Commander Park reached his daughter and lifted her into his arms. She was crying and holding her ribs where the pain was worst. Park looked at her small face, bloody and bruised. He looked at the Krell officer, who stood without shame or apology. Trosses was already walking away, back to his soldiers, as if what he had done was nothing. The human commander said nothing. Not then. He carried J1 to the medical center. Humans had built their own small hospital at the hub. The doctors there checked her carefully. They told him the good news: no bones were broken. The bad news was that J1 would be in pain for weeks. Her body would heal, but the memory would stay with her forever. Park sat beside her bed while she slept. She looked small and fragile under the white blanket. He thought about Earth. He thought about his wife back home. He thought about what he had taught his daughter about the galaxy. He had told her it was a place where humans belonged. He had told her they were safe now because humans were strong. That had been a lie. Or maybe it was just not the whole truth. The truth was that humans were strong. But strength was not shown by how hard you could hit. The Krell had shown him what happened when you hit harder than everyone else. The Krell had built an empire on that simple fact. But humans were strong in different ways. Humans had patience. Humans had memory. Humans had families. And they protected their families. They protected them with a focus and determination that nothing else in the galaxy understood. Commander Park looked at his injured daughter and made a decision. He stood and left the medical center. He went to the human communication array. He sent a message to Earth. He sent a message to every human ship in space. He sent a message to every human outpost in the galaxy. The message was simple. A Krell officer had struck a human child. What happened next would echo through the stars. The message traveled through space faster than any ship. It moved through the quantum networks that connected human colonies across 3 star systems. Within hours, every human in the galaxy knew what had happened. A Krell officer had struck a human child. The child was named J1. She was 8 years old. She was the daughter of Commander Park. On Earth, the message reached the Human Defense Council. These were the leaders who made decisions for all humans in space. They sat in a meeting room in Seoul, Korea. They looked at the images of J1's injuries. They read the full report of what happened at the hub. General Kim, who led the Defense Council, felt something hot move through her chest. It was not anger alone. It was something older and deeper. It was the kind of feeling that made humans do extraordinary things. She looked at the other council members. She did not need to speak. Every human on the council had children. Every human understood what it meant when someone hurt a child. There were no arguments about what needed to happen. There were no discussions about whether the response was right or wrong. There was only certainty. General Kim made 3 decisions that day. First, she ordered every human ship in space to change course. They would not continue their normal routes. They would move toward the Krell territories. Second, she ordered all human military forces to prepare for action. Not for war, but for something that would send a clearer message than any war could send. Third, she sent a message back to Commander Park. It was also simple. It said only, "We remember our young. We will answer." Across the galaxy, humans began to move. Captain Lee was commanding a merchant ship near the Proxima system. She had been carrying trade goods to 3 different stations. When she received the message, she changed course immediately. Her crew of 40 humans looked at each other and understood. No one questioned her orders. They knew why they were moving. They had all seen the images of the child. Commander Okafor was on a space station orbiting a mining planet. He had 3,000 humans under his command. Most were scientists and workers, not soldiers. But when the message came, all 3,000 made the same decision. They would be ready. They would be part of what was coming. Okafor began organizing supplies and weapons. He began planning for every possibility. On the colony world of New Seoul, families gathered in the streets. They listened to the announcement about what had happened to J1. Children asked their parents why humans were gathering so many ships. Why was the military moving so fast? Parents answered honestly. They said that when someone hurt a human child, humans did not forget. Humans did not let it pass. Humans made sure it never happened again. The Krell did not understand what was happening at first. They had seen humans send messages before. They had seen humans make complaints to the Galactic Council. The Krell knew that humans would talk and argue and then do nothing. This was what weak species did. They used words when they lacked strength. But this was different. The Krell saw human ships moving out of their normal positions. They saw them gathering at different points in space. They saw humans activating old military bases that had been quiet for months. The Krell High Command issued orders. No one was allowed to harm humans. It was a direct order from the military leadership. But it came too late. The order came only after they understood what humans were really doing. Commander Trosses received the news in his quarters at the Krell military compound. An aide came to him and delivered a message. The human child J1 was alive, but humans across the galaxy were now hunting for him. They had his location. They had his image. They had his genetic code. Every human in space was now looking for the Krell officer who had struck the child. Trosses laughed at first. He laughed because he thought it was a joke. A few weak humans were looking for him? This was nothing. He had killed thousands of stronger creatures. He had defeated armies. But the aide told him something else. The aide said that humans were moving together. All of them. All at once. There was no individual human acting alone. This was a whole species moving as one organism. Trosses stopped laughing. He went to a window and looked out at the space station around him. He had always felt safe here. He had always felt like he was at the center of power. Now he looked at the same station and felt something he had never felt before. He felt afraid. The aide told him that the Krell High Command had already demanded answers from the Galactic Council. They demanded that the Council punish this human act of aggression. But the Council was silent. The other species were silent. Even the oldest races, the ones who had ruled for millions of years, said nothing. This silence meant something. It meant that the other species understood what humans were doing. It meant they understood why. It meant they agreed that what the human child's people were doing was justified. In the weeks that followed, humans from every walk of life became part of the hunt. Scientists used computers to track Trosses. Soldiers prepared weapons and ships. Merchants shared information about Krell movements. Everyone had a role. Everyone contributed. Commander Park watched his daughter heal slowly in the medical center. J1 was strong. She had her father's strength, but she had nightmares. She woke in the middle of the night crying, remembering the moment when the Krell officer's fist came down toward her. Park sat with her and told her that humans did not forget. He told her that every human in the galaxy now knew her name. He told her that they were all working together to send a message. The message was simple. It said, "You do not touch our young in the deepest parts of space." In the hidden places where criminals and exiles tried to disappear, Commander Trosses started running. He understood now that no place in the galaxy would be far enough. He understood that humans would find him. He understood that humans had all the time in the world to search. And he was right. The hunt had only just begun. 3 months had passed since Commander Trosses struck the child. In those 3 months, he had run across space like a hunted animal. He changed ships 17 times. He traveled through asteroid fields and nebulas and through the empty spaces between stars. He moved from station to station, always staying ahead of the humans. But the humans were everywhere. They were not just soldiers. They were teachers and farmers and doctors and engineers. They were entire families working together to track him down. Trosses had learned something important during these 3 months. He had learned that humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. Humans did not give up. Humans did not get tired. Humans did not move on to other problems. They only wanted one thing. They wanted him. He tried to hide on a space station, controlled by an alien species called the Quinn. The Quinn were neutral in galactic politics. They did not care about human problems or Krell politics. But when Trosses arrived at their station, the human tracker named Jun found him in 2 days. Jun was a woman with dark eyes and a simple way of speaking. She walked into the bar where Trosses was hiding and pointed at him. She said nothing. She did not need to. Behind her were 30 other humans. They had guns and nets and devices that would stop his heart. If he moved, Trosses ran again. He went to a mining colony on a moon orbiting a dead planet. The humans found him within a week. He went to a research station studying black holes. The humans found him there too. They were not angry when they found him. They were not excited. They were calm and patient and certain. Each time they found him, they tried to take him alive. This was important. Commander Park had given clear orders. Trosses must not be killed. He must be captured. This made the hunt even more terrifying to Trosses. If the humans wanted him dead, he could understand it. He could accept it as part of the rules of war. But the humans wanted him alive. This meant something darker. This meant that the humans had plans for him. This meant his death was not the goal. Something else was. The humans became better at hunting him. They learned his patterns. They learned where he would go and when he would go there. They set traps and waited. They moved through space with coordination that was beyond anything Trosses had ever seen. This was not a military organization like the Krell military. This was something different. This was an entire species acting as one body. Billions of humans on thousands of worlds, all focused on one goal. The hunt became famous throughout the galaxy. Other species watched and said nothing. The Krell demanded that the humans stop. The Galactic Council issued statements about the need for peace. But no one moved to help Trosses. No one protected him. The other species understood that if they interfered, humans would remember. Humans would remember their names, their worlds, their interests. And humans did not forget. Tross ran to the asteroid fields near the Kepler system. The field contained millions of rocks floating in darkness. He thought the asteroids would hide him. He thought the humans would lose his trail. But the humans came anyway. They moved through the field like they were swimming through water. They split into teams and moved in patterns that covered every possible escape route. Captain Min led one team. She had been a teacher on Earth before she joined the search. She had a daughter who was 9 years old, just a year older than Jaewon. Min moved through the asteroids with 4 other humans. They used simple tools and basic weapons. They did not need advanced technology. They needed only patience and determination. They found Trosses hiding inside a small asteroid that had been hollowed out. He was thin and weak. He had not eaten well in weeks. He had not slept properly. The fear had drained his strength. When Min and her team surrounded him, Trosses tried to fight. But he was no match for 4 rested humans who had trained for exactly this moment. They took him down. They put devices on his wrists and neck that would keep him from running. They treated him with no cruelty, but with no kindness either. Trosses asked them why they had not killed him. Captain Min looked at him and said only 3 words, "Because we remember." They placed him on a ship. The ship was commanded by General Pak, a veteran of human military service. The ship moved toward the center of the galaxy, toward the Galactic Council chambers. The journey took weeks. Trosses sat in a cell that was clean and safe. He was given food that was good. He was treated well. But every day he knew what was coming. Every day the ship moved closer to his judgment. The other Krell learned that Trosses had been captured. The Krell High Command demanded his release, but the Galactic Council said nothing. The Council knew what was happening. The Council understood the rules. The rules said that if you struck a human child, you would answer for it. The rules said that humans protected their young with a focus that no other species could match. In the cell, Trosses finally understood what humans really were. They were not weak. They were not soft. Humans were something that every other species had underestimated. Humans were a species that would follow you across the entire galaxy. Humans would use all their strength and patience and coordination to make you answer for your actions. Humans were Deathworlders, and Deathworlders did not forgive. The Galactic Council chambers were the largest building in the galaxy. They stood on a station that orbited a star that had died billions of years ago. The chambers had been built by species that no longer existed. They had been preserved by the oldest races. Every species in the galaxy had a seat in these chambers. Every species had a voice. But today, all the voices were quiet. General Park stood outside the council chambers. He was not the same man who had sent the first message months ago. His face was harder now. His eyes were colder. He had spent every day hunting Trosses. He had spent every night thinking about his daughter. Now he was here, and the Krell officer was about to face the consequences. The council had tried to prevent this moment. They had sent messages to Earth demanding that humans stop the hunt. They had threatened military action. They had tried to convince the Krell to join them in forcing humans to back down. But nothing worked. The humans had simply continued. One day, the council realized that they could not stop humans when humans had decided to do something. The council could only watch and let it happen. Commander Trosses was brought into the chambers in chains. The chains were strong enough to hold a Krell. They were made from a metal that existed nowhere in nature. It had to be created by advanced technology. The chains meant that the humans took this capture very seriously. Trosses looked around the chamber. Every species was here. The Quell with their shining bodies. The Vrax with their many eyes. The ancient ones who had ruled for millions of years. All of them watched as a human military escort brought a Krell officer into the chamber in chains. This had never happened before. A Krell officer had never been brought before the council as a prisoner. A Krell officer had never been put in chains. The Krell were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They did not bow to councils or to laws. But this Krell officer was in chains, and no one was moving to help him. General Park stepped forward. He stood in the center of the chamber. He was one human among thousands of powerful alien beings. But when he began to speak, the entire chamber listened. He spoke in simple words. He did not use fancy language or complex arguments. He said that his daughter was 8 years old. He said that she had been a child who liked to run in hallways and buy crystals from alien shops. He said that she had been happy and safe because her father had believed the galaxy was a place where humans belonged. Then he said that a Krell officer had changed that. General Park described what happened. At the hub, he described his daughter's injuries. He described her nightmares. He described the moment when he realized that his daughter was no longer safe in the galaxy. Then he said something that made every being in the chamber shift uncomfortably. He said that when humans decided to act, the entire species moved as one. He said that every human in the galaxy had spent the last 3 months hunting for Trosses. He said that no human had stopped to sleep until this officer was found. Park gestured at Trosses. He said that the capture of this officer was not the goal. The goal was a message. The message was that humans protected their young. The message was that if you touched a human child, the entire human species would come looking for you. The message was that humans would follow you to the end of the galaxy and beyond. He said that humans were Deathworlders. This was a term that every species understood. It meant a being that came from a world that was hard and dangerous. A world where the strong survived and the weak did not. A world that produced creatures that were dangerous and unpredictable. But Park explained that humans used their death world strength differently than other species. Humans used it to protect family. Humans used it to care for the young. Humans used it to create loyalty that other species could not understand. The Krell leadership tried to speak. They demanded that Trosses be released. They claimed that the capture was illegal. They said that humans had violated galactic law by taking a Krell officer as a prisoner, but no other species supported them. The ancient ones, the species that had ruled for millions of years, said that the capture was justified. They said that the Krell had broken the most basic rule of the galaxy. The rule was that children were protected. All children, no matter what species they belonged to, no matter what differences existed between species. A representative from the Krell stood up. She said that humans had taught the galaxy something important. She said that the hunt for Trosses had shown all species what humans really were. She said that humans were not the weak newcomers that the Krell had believed. Humans were a species that could unite. Humans were a species that could act with perfect coordination across billions of individuals. The Vrax spoke next. They said that they would no longer accept Krell military authority over their territory. They said that the Krell had proven themselves to be unreliable guardians of peace. One by one, the other species spoke. One by one, they stated that they no longer accepted Krell rule. They said that the galaxy needed a new order. They said that if a species could prove that it could unite and act with purpose, then that species deserved a voice in how the galaxy was run. The humans had not intended to take power, but the hunt for Trosses had shown the galaxy what humans could do. It had shown that humans were unified in a way that no other species was. It had shown that humans would do what was necessary to protect their own. Trosses was taken to a cell, deep below the council chambers. He would be held there. He would not be executed, but he would spend the rest of his life in confinement. This was the punishment. Not death, but life spent knowing that his actions had changed the galaxy forever. General Park left the council chambers. He had not enjoyed the hunt. He had not felt joy in capturing Trosses. He had done what needed to be done. Now he would return to his daughter. He would sit with her while she healed from her injuries. He would tell her that humans took care of their own, and the galaxy would never forget what they learned that day. 5 years passed after Commander Trosses was placed in the council chambers. The galaxy had changed in those 5 years. The change was not made with weapons or wars. It was made with words and decisions and the understanding that things could not go back to the way they were before. J1 was now 13 years old. She stood in a school on Earth wearing the uniform of a student diplomat. She was being trained to represent humanity in the galaxy. Her face still showed the faint scar from where the Krell officer's fist had connected with her cheek. But the scar did not make her look weak. It made her look strong. It was a reminder of what happened when someone underestimated humanity. She had not forgotten what happened at the hub. She remembered every detail. The pain was gone, but the memory remained. She had decided to use that memory to do good. She had decided to become someone who could help create peace instead of conflict. She studied languages and diplomacy and the history of the galaxy. She wanted to understand every species and what they believed in. On the station that orbited the dead star, the Galactic Council was very different now. The Krell still had a seat, but they no longer controlled the military. The control had been given to a council of all species. Humans had representatives on this council. General Park was no longer commanding the hunt. He was now commanding human military forces that help protect all species equally. The message from the hunt had spread far beyond the council chambers. Every species in the galaxy understood what had happened. They understood that humans were a species that protected their young with absolute dedication. They understood that humans would not tolerate aggression against children. They understood that humans, despite being newcomers to the galaxy, had changed everything. New laws were created. Laws that protected all children. Laws that said violence against the young was the gravest crime that could be committed. Laws that said if you struck a child, every species in the galaxy would know about it. Laws that said you could not hide from the consequences of harming the innocent. Some species complained about these new laws. They said that humans had imposed their values on the entire galaxy. But the laws remained because too many species understood their purpose. The purpose was to create a galaxy where children could be safe. The purpose was to create a place where young beings could grow and learn without fear. Commander Trosses spent 5 years in the cell beneath the council chambers. He did not go insane. He did not become weak. Instead, he became something that the Krell had never wanted to be. He became someone who understood humanity. He understood that humans were not violent savages. He understood that humans were something far more dangerous to their enemies. Humans were beings who would sacrifice anything for their families. Humans would do anything to protect their young. On the anniversary of the day, Trosses was placed in the chamber. He was brought before the council again. The chamber was full. Every species wanted to hear what would be said. J1 stood with her father. She was no longer a small child. She was becoming a young woman. She carried herself with confidence. Trosses looked at the child he had struck so many years ago. He could see the mark his action had left on her face. He could see the strength in her eyes. He understood that what she had become was his fault. He had created a symbol. He had turned a child into a representation of human strength and unity. A representative of the Vrax stood and spoke. She said that the council had decided to make a change. She said that Trosses would be released from confinement, but he would not be free. He would be required to travel to every human colony in the galaxy. He would be required to speak to human children about what he had done. He would be required to tell them the truth about the consequences of striking the innocent. Tross would become a living reminder. He would become proof that actions had consequences. He would become proof that humans took care of their own. General Park spoke to the council. He spoke about the 5 years that had passed. He spoke about the laws that had been created. He spoke about the new order that had emerged from the hunt for Trosses. He said that the galaxy was safer now because of what had happened, but he also said something else. He said that humans did not want power in the galaxy. Humans wanted only to be treated fairly. Humans wanted their children to be safe. Humans wanted to be part of a galaxy where strength meant protecting the weak, not conquering them. Then General Park looked at his daughter. He told her that she had been brave. He told her that her suffering had led to something good. He told her that because she was struck that day at the hub, millions of children across the galaxy would now be safer. J1 stepped forward. She was young, but her voice was steady and clear. She said that she did not hate Commander Trosses. She said that she had forgiven him. But she said that forgiveness was not the same as forgetting. She said that the galaxy had learned something important from what happened. The galaxy had learned that humans were united. The galaxy had learned that humans protected their own. She looked at every species in the chamber. She said that all species should protect their young the same way. She said that in a galaxy where every species took care of their children this way, there would be less suffering. There would be less pain. Then she did something unexpected. She walked toward Trosses. Every being in the chamber was still. They thought she might strike him, but she did not. She stood in front of him and held out her hand. She offered him peace. Trosses looked at this young human who had reason to hate him. He looked at her scar. He looked at her strength. He took her hand. The chamber erupted. Every species was speaking at once. Some cheered. Some wept. Some simply sat in silence and understood what they had. Witnessed. The story of J1 and the hunt for Trosses became the story of how humanity changed the galaxy. It became the story of how a child's suffering led to justice. It became the story of how Deathworlders protected their young with absolute dedication. In the 5 years that followed, the galaxy became different. There were fewer conflicts between species. There was more cooperation. Children everywhere were safer because humans had shown that unity was stronger than power. Humans had shown that acting together with purpose could change everything. Years later, when J1 was old enough, she became a diplomat herself. She worked to create peace between species. She worked to build relationships that were based on respect instead of fear. And she never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the day at the hub. She never forgot the sound of the Krell officer's fist. But more than that, she never forgot what came after. She never forgot the moment when every human in the galaxy stood together and said that they would protect their own. She never forgot the power of unity, and the galaxy never forgot the Deathworlders, who placed their enemy's head at the Council's feet as a statement about what it meant to be human.